Hello and welcome to this video on which program should you use, Mplus or Lavaan. My name is Geiser. I'm an instructor and statistical consultant with QuantFish, and on this channel I present weekly statistics tutorials. On Tuesday I usually discuss an analysis or problem in the Mplus software, and on Thursdays I talk about more general issues in multivariate statistical analysis, including structural equation modeling, factor analysis, latent class analysis, and multi-level modeling. If this is something that interests you, then please subscribe to this channel. Also, don't forget to hit the like button and to check out the description for additional resources, including a link to my free weekly statistics newsletter, as well as workshops that I offer through QuantFish. In this video, I want to talk about the Mplus software and the Lavaan software and provide you with a basic comparison of those two programs so that you can decide which program you might choose if you want to analyze structural equation models, path models, or confirmatory factor models. And I'm going to begin talking about the advantages of Mplus, and then in the second part I will tell you what I like about the Lavaan software, and then I'll conclude at the end, let you know which program might be more suitable for your needs. So let's begin with Mplus. Mplus has been around for a little bit longer than Lavaan, and I actually learned structural equation modeling using the Mplus software, and so therefore, as a disclaimer, I might have a slight bias towards the Mplus software because simply I'm more used to it. I've worked with it for many years now, and so obviously when you're very used to something, then you know it very well and you kind of like it. It's like this bias towards things that you know, and so then if you learn something new, then you might think, oh, this is maybe not so great because why not do it this way like I'm used to. So that being said, I also have nice things to say about Lavaan later on, but let me talk about Mplus first, keeping in mind that I might have a slight bias towards Mplus simply because I'm more used to it. First of all, what I like about Mplus is that I find the Mplus syntax to be very intuitive and easy to learn. There are a lot of keywords in the syntax that are self-explanatory. The code isn't very cryptical in my opinion. A lot of it makes intuitive sense. Like for example, when you specify a factor model, then you say the factor by the indicator, so the factor is measured by the indicators. That's easy to remember. Or when a variable y is regressed on a variable x, then you say, okay, y on x, the dependent variable regressed on the independent variable. And so, for example, that makes a lot of sense and is easy to remember. You can specify models with just a few lines of code, like for example, a growth curve model, even though that's a fairly complex model. You can specify with a single line of code in Mplus as long as it's not a complicated growth model. So that's very nice about Mplus. Mplus also is not case sensitive. So regardless of whether your variables come in capital letters, the variable names, or lowercase letters, Mplus doesn't care. If you use lowercase and uppercase interchangeably, everything is ignored in terms of the upper or lowercase letters in Mplus, and makes it also quite easy. Furthermore, Mplus has one advantage over Lavaan in terms of the modeling options that you have, and that is that Mplus also features mixture distribution models, or we could say latent class models. So for example, in Mplus you can also analyze classical latent class analysis with binary or ordinal indicators. You can specify latent profile analysis for continuous variables. You can run a latent transition analysis, and you can combine mixture distribution models also with factor models and structural equation models and other models. So for example, you can analyze factor mixture models or growth mixture models by combining the mixture feature in Mplus with the structural equation modeling module, and so that is something that Lavaan currently does not allow you to do. So if you're interested in mixture distribution models, then Mplus may be a good option for you because it's very flexible, makes it very easy to specify various different types of mixture distribution models, and that's really one of the strength of Mplus compared to Lavaan is that it's very powerful for a wide variety of modeling approaches, a wide variety of outcome variables. They can come in different scale levels, and Mplus can handle many different types of scale levels for observed variables as well. It's also very easy in Mplus, like I said before, to specify complex models. So even when an analysis is very complicated, for a lot of types of analyses, Mplus has default settings that allow you to automate certain procedures, like for example also multi-group invariance testing, where there's a function where you can automatically test different levels of longitudinal measurement equivalence or measurement equivalence across different groups in multi-group analysis. And so Mplus facilitates that process, which is very nice. So those are the key advantages, I would say, of Mplus as I see them. Now let me move on to Lavaan and tell you what I like about Lavaan. And so first of all, and maybe the most important advantage of Lavaan over Mplus is that it is free and open source. So that obviously is a big advantage. Mplus is pretty pricey, and if you want the upgrades for newer versions of Mplus and support from the support team, then you have to not only pay for the program once, but you also have to pay for the yearly support and upgrade contract. And so this is something that some people can't afford or don't want to pay for. And so Lavaan then obviously has the advantage that it's completely free. And so you can download it in the R and use it in the R platform wherever you are. It is open source, which means it's not a black box. You can look at the code and see what's actually happening when Lavaan runs your models. And so that is a huge advantage over Mplus, is that it's free and can be used anywhere, and that it's part of the very powerful R computing platform, which integrates a lot of different types of statistical and graphical and other methods. And so this means that once you have R, you have not only Lavaan at your disposal, but many other things as well. And you can integrate your Lavaan output, or can use your Lavaan output in other R functions, including making, for example, graphical displays and so on. So it's a very powerful, very flexible computing environment that is all free. And so that is, of course, a very nice feature. Furthermore, Lavaan can do all the standard SEM and confirmatory factor and exploratory factor types of analyses that Mplus can do as well, or at least pretty much everything. So as long as you have a standard factor model, standard path analysis, standard structural equation model, standard growth model, and so on, you can do all the same things that you can do in Mplus. Now, like I said before, Lavaan does not currently have mixture distribution models as an integration with structural equation models. So if you want to do that, then probably that's easier to do in the Mplus software. Another thing that I like about Lavaan is that the syntax is set up in a way that you can have multiple models in one syntax file. In Mplus, typically you would specify a separate input file or syntax file for each model. And so that can get pretty messy when you run many different models, which we often do to compare different models or estimate different versions of models. And so then in many situations, you would have to specify a separate syntax file for each new model, and then your folder with your models can fill up pretty quickly. For each model, you have an input file and an output file, as well as a diagram file. And so then you have a lot of different files that you have to keep track of, and that can get a little bit messy over time when you have many models. Whereas in Lavaan, you have all your models in one syntax file. You can call in other R functions in between to do other things. And so it's an all-in-one process, which I like a lot, to have, so say, that completeness, one single file, and it has all my code, and then, so to say, I'm done with it. This is keeps it a little bit more orderly, or at least makes it easier to keep it orderly. That being said, though, the Lavaan syntax is something that I personally don't love. So, and again, this might have to do with the fact that I grew up writing Mplus code. I can now do it in my sleep. And of course, then when you learn something new, then it's like you think, oh, why is this different? And oh, I can't get used to it. I know Mplus code and I want it to be like that. So that being said, though, in Lavaan, it's a little bit more cryptical for my taste. The symbols that you use are a little bit less intuitive for my taste, and it's a little bit more mathematical in terms of specifying equations, but it's still very simple. So the code, similar to Mplus code, is very simple. You can specify complex models with just a few lines of code, and many of the defaults in Lavaan follow the defaults in Mplus. So if you're already used to Mplus, then it's relatively easy to switch to Lavaan, because Lavaan, in a way, or the Lavaan syntax in a way, parallels what is done in Mplus as well. So it's not very difficult to learn. Once you know Mplus syntax, you can also learn Lavaan syntax. And that's something that I also would like to mention. There's actually a really cool function in Lavaan that makes it easy to transition from Mplus to Lavaan. So let's say you no longer want to pay for Mplus and you want to switch over to Lavaan, then you can use a function in Lavaan that's called Mplus to Lavaan, so Mplus and then the number 2 and then Lavaan, and that function allows you to translate Mplus syntax automatically into Lavaan syntax. And I've used this feature and I love it, because like I said, I don't like to write Lavaan code. I don't find it intuitive, and so I always use the Mplus to Lavaan transition when I can, this automatic code that allows me to automatically transform Mplus syntax into Lavaan syntax, and then I don't have to write it. So that's a nice feature. I will make a separate video on how to use that Mplus to Lavaan feature in the Lavaan software and post it here on this channel shortly. So in summary, we could say Mplus is maybe a little bit more flexible in terms of the different modeling options, especially when it comes to mixture modeling, latent class modeling. That's where Mplus has a big advantage. Also, Mplus syntax is maybe a little bit more intuitive, which can be an advantage for some people who just find it easier to work with Mplus syntax than with the Lavaan syntax and the R environment. On the other hand, Lavaan is free, which is a huge advantage. It's an open source software, and you can do pretty much anything that you could also do in Mplus when it comes to structural equation modeling and factor analysis. Lavaan is integrated in the much larger statistical computing environment R, which is also an advantage. And so really, at the end of the day, both programs work very well. Both have advantages and disadvantages, and it's maybe a matter of taste. If you're already familiar with the R environment and R code, then you might not find it a big deal to just use Lavaan, and you may not need to buy Mplus. If, on the other hand, you're a little bit more anxious about software code and syntax, then Mplus might be an option, because Mplus also has a feature where it guides you through the syntax. So it has a syntax generator. You can also generate a model now from a path diagram, which means Mplus allows you to generate code syntax from specifying a model as a path diagram. And some people might find that easier to get started than to write the Lavaan code themselves. Although there's also good documentation for Lavaan online. It's all free, so you can find tons of resources that would guide you through that process. So my conclusion is that either program is fine, and you should just pick the one that you like better. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, then please subscribe to this channel. Don't forget to hit the like button. Leave a comment in the comment section. Let us know which program you prefer and why. Maybe I have also not mentioned certain arguments, pro or con each of the programs. So if you have additional points that should be mentioned, then please leave a comment in the comment section. Don't forget to check out the description for additional resources, and I'll see you next time.